What happens when a school bully picks the wrong 72-year-old woman? 10 seconds later, nobody was laughing. They called him D, not because of his grades, though those weren't anything to brag about, but because of his last name, Dillard. Deshaun Dillard, 15 years old, 6 feet 1 inch, already with a mustache he swore made him look grown. He walked the halls of Booker T. Washington Middle School in Toledo, Ohio like he owned them. Shoulders squared, chin up, hoodie halfway on, even when it was cold. You ever seen a kid who treats school like it's a stage? That was Deshaun. He had a comeback for every teacher, a glare for every hall monitor, and a pack of kids trailing behind him like bodyguards. He didn't just talk loud. He moved loud, slapping locker doors, stomping sneakers that squeaked across the tile floors, bumping into people like he didn't see them. No one checked him, not the teachers, not security, not even the assistant principal, who just shook his head like he'd given up a long time ago. One morning, Deshaun showed up late again. It was a Thursday. He strutted through the double doors just as the first bell rang. In his mind, the school ran on his time. He looked at his phone, slid it back in his pocket, and noticed a smaller kid, about 7th grade, hurrying to the front office with a broken laptop in his hands. "Yo, watch out," Deshaun barked, stepping right into the kid's path, making him flinch. The kid said sorry, like he did something wrong. Deshaun just smirked and followed him down the hallway. "Man, y'all always looking scared," Deshaun muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's just school, not prison." Laughter from behind him. A few of his boys were trailing Rico, Jalen, and Snoop. Snoop's real name was Theodore, but no one dared call him that. Deshaun shoved the door open to the front office like he was entering a locker room before a game. There was no reason for him to be there. He just wanted to see what was going on, maybe stir something up. "Yo," he said, drawing the attention of everyone in the office. "Y'all got cookies or something in here? Smell like somebody's grandma been baking." That's when he saw her. Back turned, standing next to the secretary's desk, dressed in a maroon skirt suit, black flats, and a wide-brimmed hat covered in little rhinestones that shimmered under the flickering fluorescent lights. She didn't even look up, just shifted a little, her posture straight, shoulders squared. Deshaun couldn't help himself. "Who grandma this is?" he asked loud enough for everyone to hear. "Miss Jackie from the block," Rico whispered from the doorway, but Deshaun wasn't listening. His ego was in full gear now. "Ain't you supposed to be in a nursing home or something? You lost, ma'am." This time, she turned slowly. Her eyes locked on his like lasers. She didn't say a word at first, just stared. Then, in a voice that was calm but sharp enough to cut marble, she said, "I suggest you back up." Deshaun blinked. He wasn't used to that. People usually stuttered or looked away, but not her. "Nah, I'm good," he said, inching even closer. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Now she smiled, just slightly. It wasn't sweet. It was the kind of smile that meant you were about to learn something you didn't sign up for. The secretary behind the desk glanced at the walkie on her belt. The assistant principal poked his head out of his office, holding a mug of coffee mid-sip. They all knew what Deshaun didn't. This wasn't some old lady. But before he could say another word, something happened that Deshaun never saw coming. Deshaun squinted, trying to read her. The way she stood there, still as stone, hand folded over a black purse like she was waiting on someone to finish playing games, threw him off. "Look, I'm just saying," he continued, trying to laugh it off. "Now you real bold being here with no walker or cane. That's impressive." Still calm. Still unmoved. "You think you're funny?" she asked. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. But funny only lasts so long when life starts handing out consequences. Deshaun scoffed and looked back at his boys, waiting for the usual laughs. Rico and Snoop weren't laughing anymore. Even Jalen was fidgeting by the door, like he wasn't sure whether to stay or leave. Then the woman turned to the secretary. "Miss Ellen, could you please let Principal Weathers know I'm here? Tell him Sergeant Freeman's arrived." The room shifted. You could feel it. That word sergeant hung in the air like smoke. "Principal Weathers?" Deshaun straightened up a little, but he tried to play it cool. Wait, hold up, Sergeant." "Yes, baby," she said, turning her eyes back on him. "I served 22 years in the Army. I've seen real problems and boys like you." She paused. Her smile was gone now. "You're not problems. You're projects." Ones I'm real good at fixing. It stung more than Deshawn would ever admit. Man, whatever, he muttered, stepping back a little, trying to save face. But Mrs. Freeman wasn't done. She turned toward him fully now, lifting her purse slightly and resting it on her forearm like she was preparing for battle. "Where's your class, young man?" she asked. He looked away. "Why you care?" "Because I'll be in it starting today. Principal Weathers asked me to cover 8th grade social studies, room 214. Right?" Deshawn's heart skipped. That was his class. Miss Langford had been out on medical leave for a week. He stared at her. This woman who looked like she should be in a pew at Sunday, service not holding his future in her palm. She wasn't even 5 feet 5 inches, but somehow the air around her felt heavy. Like you couldn't lie near it. Like you couldn't fake anything. "Don't worry," she said, walking past him slowly and deliberately. "We'll have plenty of time to get acquainted." Deshawn stood there, silent as the door shut behind her. The room was dead quiet. "Boy, you just signed up for a lesson you ain't ready for," Miss Ellen said. Deshawn muttered under his breath. "Man, she ain't even a real teacher." The assistant principal walked out from his office, finally sipping his coffee, shaking his head. "She's more than a teacher. That woman trained soldiers. Led a platoon. She was hired specially because some of y'all out here acting like this place is a playground." Deshawn felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. Not fear, not anger. Something else. Something that whispered, "You're not in charge anymore." But by the time he made it to room 214, that whisper turned into a full-blown reality check. Room 214 sat at the end of the second-floor hallway, right next to the stairwell with the flickering light nobody ever fixed. Deshawn dragged his feet, walking slower than usual, like maybe if he took long enough, she'd disappear. But when he turned the corner, there she was, Mrs. Eloise Freeman, standing by the whiteboard, marker already in hand. Her handwriting was big, neat, and strong. "Discipline is a form of love" was written across the board in capital letters. The class was quiet. That never happened. Usually it was a zoo kids talking, throwing paper, teachers yelling just to be heard. But this? You could hear people breathing. Deshawn's usual seat in the back had never felt so far away. He pushed open the door. She didn't even look up. "Glad you could join us, Mr. Dillard," she said without turning around. "Grab your seat." Someone snickered. Deshawn froze. No one called him by his last name unless he was in trouble. He glanced around and caught a few eyes, but nobody dared say anything. Everyone was watching, waiting. He sat down. She turned, calm and collected, eyes sweeping the room. "I know most of you haven't met me yet," she said. "I'm Miss Freeman. I don't yell, I don't chase, and I don't repeat myself." She let that hang in the air for a moment. "Now," she said, tapping her finger on a stack of folders, "today we're starting with something different. No textbook, no Chromebooks, just a question. Write this at the top of your paper. Who am I when no one's watching?" There were groans, but quiet ones. Even Deshawn, who usually would have made a scene, just leaned back and crossed his arms. She walked the aisles while they wrote, slow, with that same measured walk, like every step had a purpose. When she got to Deshawn, she paused. His paper was blank. Nothing to say. "Mr. Dillard," she asked softly. He stared at the head of his paper. "I don't know what you want me to say," he muttered. "I don't want you to say anything," she said. "I want you to think. That's your real issue, isn't it? You're louder than your thoughts, and that's dangerous." He looked up at her for a second. Their eyes met again. "I know boys like you," she continued, "but not with judgment. With clarity. You think if you walk hard and talk loud, people won't see the scared child behind the noise." The room was silent. She moved on like she hadn't just dropped a weight on his chest. A girl, too, rose, leaned to the side, trying to get a better look at his face. He shot her a glare, but didn't say anything. Mrs. Freeman returned to the front. "Here's the truth," she said. "There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who get by on fear, and those who earn respect. Fear doesn't last. Respect does." Someone raised a hand. Yes, it was Kesha, the shy girl who barely talked in class. "Were you really in the Army?" Mrs. Freeman smiled. "Yes, 22 years. Started as a private, retired as a sergeant. I've been in places where people didn't care if you lived or died. Taught men twice your size how to respect life and themselves. And now I'm here because your principal believes some of you need the same lesson. She didn't say it like a threat. It was a statement. A simple truth. Deshawn looked down at his paper, still blank. He picked up his pencil. For a moment, he felt something shift inside. Not all the way, but something. But just when the room felt like it might settle, Deshawn's pride came back with a roar, and he made a decision that would change everything. The day dragged on, and Deshawn couldn't shake it. That woman, the way she looked at him, like she already knew everything. Like she wasn't scared. Like she'd seen way worse and didn't have time for his nonsense. He'd never admitted out loud, but her words stuck. You're louder than your thoughts, and that's dangerous. He chewed on that all the way to lunch at his usual table in the corner of the cafeteria. The energy was off. Rico kept checking his phone. Jalen was halfway into his sandwich without even joking once. Even Snoop was quiet, picking at the crust of his pizza. You good, D? Rico finally asked. I'm straight, Deshawn muttered. She just caught me off guard, thinking she can talk to me like I'm soft. Snoop glanced up. He did bump her, though, on purpose. So, she didn't even blink. That was kind of wild. Man, whatever. I ain't scared of no old lady. But that wasn't true. He wasn't scared. Not of her fists. But something about her presence made him feel small. Like being loud wouldn't get him out of anything anymore. Then Rico said something that really hit. Loki feel like she saw through you, D. Deshawn stared at him. Say what? You always joking around, pushing people. She didn't flinch. Didn't even get mad. Just said what she said and made everybody sit up straight. I don't think she's afraid of nothing. That sat with him. He tried to brush it off, change the subject, talk about sneakers or YouTube. But the weight stayed. His chest was tight, and his fingers tapped restlessly on the table. By sixth period, he made up his mind. He wasn't going to let Mrs. Freeman walk around like she ran the school. He needed to remind her and everybody else who Deshawn Dillard was. So he made a plan. Right after the last bell, he headed to the front office, said he needed to speak to the principal about his schedule. It was a lie, of course, but he knew that's where she'd be. Mrs. Freeman always signed out at the end of the day in person. She was already there when he arrived. Back turned again. Same purse, same hat, same quiet strength. He stepped up behind her this time close. Closer than before. No laughter. No boys behind him. Just him and her and whatever storm he was about to start. She turned. Their eyes met again. Didn't I tell you back up? She said, soft but sharp. Deshawn clenched his jaw. You don't scare me. I'm not trying to scare you, she replied. I'm trying to save you. He rolled his eyes. From what? From yourself. That was it. Pride boiling, voice rising, Deshawn blurted, You don't know me. He took one more step forward and, out of pure frustration, bumped her shoulder with his arm again. It wasn't hard, but it was intentional. And it was a mistake. The room fell dead silent. Miss Ellen froze mid-typing. A counselor who had just walked in stopped cold in the doorway. Even the office printer went quiet, like it didn't want to witness what came next. Mrs. Freeman didn't stumble. She didn't yell. She simply reached out, gripped his wrist not tight, just enough, and leaned in so close he could feel her breath. Let me tell you something, young man, she said, still calm, still measured. Where I come from, disrespect has a cost. And the problem with you is nobody's made you pay yet. Deshawn's face flushed. He pulled back fast. What, you gonna hit me? He snapped. Mrs. Freeman stepped back, folded her arms. I don't need to lay hands on you. Life's going to do that for me if you keep this up. The assistant principal stepped in, just then, jaw tight. Deshawn, my office. Now. Mrs. Freeman turned away like the conversation was over, like she'd already said everything that needed saying. But Deshawn wasn't done. Man, this whole school fake. Y'all let some old lady come in here and talk crazy. I ain't scared of her. She just mad she old. Mrs. Freeman paused. Then, without turning around, she said one final thing. Better to be old and wise than young and foolish. Wisdom survives. Foolishness gets buried. But what happened next, even she didn't see coming, and it changed everything. Deshawn sat across from Principal Weathers, legs bouncing under the table. His hoodie was half on again, like armor he didn't know how to take off. "Mister." Weathers was quiet at first, just looking at him. Then he sighed and leaned forward, folding his hands like a tired preacher. "Do you know who that woman is?" he asked. Deshawn rolled his eyes. Yeah. Army lady. Retired, or whatever." "No," Weathers said, firm now. "She's more than that. She's been through war, literal war. Afghanistan, Iraq. Led men who didn't want to follow anyone, and they respected her. You think she came out of retirement to deal with you?" "No, son. She came back because I asked her to. Because you're not the only one in this building crashing into everything and calling it personality." Deshawn shifted in his seat. "She ain't had to grab me, though," he muttered, knowing how weak it sounded even as he said it. "Mister." Weathers narrowed his eyes. "She didn't hurt you. She stopped you. There's a difference. And honestly, you're lucky she's got that much restraint. You put hands on her twice. I ain't hit her. You disrespected her twice. In front of staff, in front of students, in front of yourself." That last part stung more than he expected. There was a long pause. Then Mister. Weathers said something Deshawn didn't see coming. "She's willing to talk to you, but only if you ask." Deshawn's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "She's in room 214 now. Packing up, Mister." Weathers continued. "You can walk out of here and keep thinking the world owes you something, or you can go ask the kind of woman who's seen the worst of humanity how she kept her soul clean." Deshawn didn't move. Weathers stood up. "You got 10 minutes before she's gone." The hallway felt different this time, longer. Quieter. His sneakers didn't squeak as much. There was no one to perform for. No Rico. No Snoop. Just the hum of the lights above and the weight in his chest. When he reached room 214, the door was cracked open. Mrs. Freeman was at the desk, sliding papers in her leather bag. Her hat was gone now, revealing short gray curls tight against her scalp. He stood in the doorway for a second, unsure. Then he knocked. She looked up, said nothing. Deshawn scratched the back of his head. "I didn't mean to." "No, you did," she interrupted. "You meant every step, every word. Don't lie now just because it didn't go your way." He nodded. She was right. "I just don't know why I get like that," he said. "I get mad fast, real fast, and then I don't even know what I'm doing." She studied him, then pointed to the chair in front of the desk. "Seat." He sat. She leaned forward, elbows on the desk, fingers laced. "Do you think being angry makes you strong? I guess I don't like people thinking they can punk me." Mrs. Freeman shook her head slowly. "You know what I learned in the service?" she asked. "The loudest ones are usually the most scared. But the quiet ones, the ones who listen, who wait, who know their strength, those are the ones you don't want to test." Deshawn looked down. "I ain't never had anybody talk to me like that," he admitted. "Not in a way that made me feel like they meant it." "That's the problem," she said. "Y'all are so used to people yelling or walking away, you don't know what to do when someone stands still." Silence filled the room again. Then she said something he'd never forget. "You think you're broken," she said, "but you're not. You're bruised. And bruises heal. But only if you stop poking at them." Deshawn looked up at her, eyes glassy. "You think I could change?" "I don't think," she said. "I know. But you've got to stop treating every kindness like a threat and every correction like an attack." He nodded. Then, in a voice so low it barely reached her ears, he said, "I'm sorry." She stood up, walked around the desk, and rested her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You're already starting," she said. "Now don't stop." But just when it seemed like Deshawn was finally learning, the real test came in the form of someone who hadn't changed at all. The next morning, Deshawn walked through the front doors of Booker T. Washington Middle School with a different kind of silence. No stomping, no talking trash, no crowd behind him. Just his backpack on one shoulder and a head full of thoughts he hadn't fully sorted out yet. He didn't say a word to the security guard, just nodded. A real nod this time. By the time he got to room 214, the bell hadn't even rung yet. Mrs. Freeman was already there, wiping down the whiteboard. Today, in the same steady handwriting, she had written, "A strong man learns, a wise man listens. Deshaun slid into his usual seat. For once, he didn't sit in the back like he had something to prove. He sat near the front. Kids started trickling in. A few gave in that looked like, "Yo, you good?" But no one said anything. The energy was different, like the air had cleared. "Mrs." Freeman turned around, caught his eyes for just a second, and gave a single nod, the kind of nod that didn't need a speech behind it. Class began. But just when Deshaun was starting to settle in, feel like he was finding his footing, he walked right into the test of it all. It happened third period in the hallway. He was walking alone to the office, delivering papers for a teacher. Head down, mind on his business. Then he showed up. Darren Clay, 8th grader. Same age as Deshaun. Built like a linebacker. Always talking crazy. Always trying to prove something. Him and Deshaun had gone back and forth a few times in the past. Nothing major. But today, Darren was in a mood. As Deshaun passed by, Darren stuck his arm out, bumping him hard in the shoulder. Deshaun stumbled a little. The hallway went quiet. A few kids nearby turned to watch. "Oh, what? You're not going to say nothing?" Darren said, arms wide. "You soft now." Deshaun looked at him. In the old days, yesterday, even, he might have swung, shoved him into the lockers, yelled, gotten suspended again. But instead, he did nothing. No, not nothing. He stood still. Looked Darren in the eye. "You good, man?" he asked. "You need something?" Darren blinked, caught off guard. Deshaun didn't wait for an answer. He kept walking. Didn't run. Didn't speed up. Just walked past him. Darren muttered, "Man, whatever," but his voice had lost its weight. At the end of the hallway, Mrs. Freeman had just stepped out of another classroom. She had seen the whole thing. As Deshaun passed her, she said just one word. "Progress." He nodded. Didn't even need to smile. The nod said it all. That afternoon in room 214, Mrs. Freeman didn't give a lecture. Instead, she sat on the edge of her desk and told the class a story. A real one. About her first year in the Army. How she'd wanted to quit. How she didn't think anybody saw her. How one day, her drill sergeant tough as nails told her, "Freeman, you walk like a whisper, but your presence shakes the room." She paused, then said, "Every one of you has that same power, but only if you stop wasting it trying to impress people who don't even know themselves." Deshaun heard every word. He didn't need applause. He didn't need followers anymore. He had something better now. Control, peace, respect. Not just from others, but finally from himself. When the final bell rang, he waited for the room to clear. Then he walked up to Mrs. Freeman. "Thanks," he said. She didn't ask what for. She just reached into her bag, pulled out a small folded paper, and handed it to him. Inside was a quote, written in the same bold handwriting. "The loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes it's just the most afraid." Deshaun folded it carefully and slipped it into his pocket. He'd remember it for a long time. Long after Mrs. Freeman returned to retirement. Long after he left middle school. Because some lessons don't come from textbooks. They come from people who show up, stand firm, and tell you the truth even when it stings. And sometimes, that's exactly what saves you. And if you're lucky, you'll meet your own Mrs. Freeman before the world teaches you the hard way. If this story made you feel something, share it. Because someone out there might be one decision away from a better path. And all they need is a reminder that change is possible.